Thank you very much for coming to the roundtable session. The topic is social capital in times of turbulence, evidence from Russia and Japan. And my name is Satoshi Mizobata from Kyoto and Ritsumeikan University. And this roundtable consists of 4 speakers except me. Hiroki Hayashi, Kazuho Yokogawa, Viktor Gorshkov, and Vasiliy Anikin. And should be the most noteworthy topic in the world is Russia's war in Ukraine, and the term of turbulence remind us of it. In this roundtable, we will discuss specificities of social capital in Russia and Japan, and challenge comparative analysis of both countries. Okay. And at first, I quickly talk the motivation and background concerning the topic. And all the speakers are the researchers on the Russian economy and the Russian society. And since the transformation in the 1990s, we have investigated the economic performance based on the economic institutions and economic policy. And even though Russia suffered seriously since then, several times, the Russian economy looks resilient to crisis and various kinds of sanctions. And through the various approaches to the Russian economy, we have raised the new concepts of crisis sanction resistant economy. And we have focused social capital in Russia as foundation of such resiliency. And thus today's main target is whether the Russia as whether social capital in Russia becomes a path tool which decreases or weakens external shocks. And of course, for the comparative analysis, the similar hypothesis can be raised in Japan, where external shocks such as natural disaster suffered. And okay, then I will illustrate the economic and social result of Russia and social and Japan. So this figure illustrates the real wages and GDP change since 2000. And in Russia, real wage, so yellow line is higher than GDP green line. And this suggests Russians have enjoyed wealthy. So in contrast to Russia, Japan shows completely opposite. So red line is higher than the blue line. So GDP is higher than the real with income is. And it tells Japanese so have lost so long years. And social indicators also Russia's crisis resistant to economy. In short, poverty rate has declined and unemployment rate is also stable. And even though economic disparity by Gini coefficient is high, after the world economic crisis, so it shows a decline trend. As for Japan, so in spite of so miserable real income change, all the social indicators show so stable. Okay, so in order to clarify social capital in both countries, we have carry out so representative survey in both countries simultaneously. We implemented questionnaire research in January and March 2022. And in Japan, sample number is 4,171 in all prefectures. And we utilize online research. And as for Russia, we chose voluntary 1,700 individuals in all districts of Russia, and we utilize telephone interviews. Needless to say, so turbulence means here, so COVID-19 in that time. And you can confirm the timing of pandemic. So before the sixth wave in Japan and before the fifth wave in Russia. And in those days, so it should be BA2 type, so Omicron virus expanded its impact was, okay? And our sample is as follows. So age structure is based on the Japanese average distribution. And as for the case of Russia, it's also similar ones, Russian average ones. And as for increased structure, as you know, so it's very specific. As for Japan, so we based on the average income. So 4.3 million Japanese yen, around $3 million dollars. $3 millionかな。3万だ。もうちょっと少ないかな。4.3 million yen か。in 2022. And we divided to 6 groups. As for Russia, we divided into 5 strata based on the average income, but taking account the regional gaps, the standard income was different by region. Okay, then we start the presentations. The lineup is as follows. Victor cannot just be in time and except Victor. So we have 3 speakers and Kazuho from Kanagawa University, Hiroaki Hayashi from Mizobata University, and Vasiliy Anikin from Higher School of Economics, Russia. And as this figure suggests, each speaker makes presentation from the specific angle. And through the presentations, I hope that each speaker suggests a comparison of Russia and Japan and behavior and response under the turbulence, so COVID-19. Okay, now shall we start the just a moment. Now shall we start our roundtable? And the first speaker is Yokogawa-san. Is okay? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So, hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to our session. My name is Kazuho Yokogawa. I'm from Kanagawa University of Japan. And today I will talk about social capital in Russia and Japan from the perspective of local community. And my data used for my presentation is all gathered in our original survey, which Professor Mizobata has talked about. So let's give a brief overview of social capital study in Russia. Russia is known as a low trust society, and generalized trust was supposed to be destroyed in the time of communist period. And but instead particularized trust among close people, close in the close circle, plays a important role in encouraging economic transactions. And it is also said that in the process of economic transition to market economy, Russia experienced a social atomization, and trust in public institutions and workplace diminished, and people become to rely on their relatives and close friends. And it is said that there is two kind of type in which social capital works according to the study of, for example, the study of Robert Putnam on Italian social capital. Russia's model is very similar to the Southern Italian model. It is a vicious circle of social capital. And Mr. Putnam thinks that it is very difficult to change the social capital. But in the Russian social capital study, it is also said there is a possibility for social capital to be changed, and the state can foster the trust and strengthen social capital. And there are some study on social capital from regional perspective, but here I skip this slide. And next, I will talk about a social capital study in Japan from the viewpoint of local society. It is said that the Japanese social capital is becoming more thin, and we used to have a social network based on local community, but it is called chien in Japanese. But such kind of relationship moved to a company or workplace. And we used to have such a close social network in our companies and workplaces. But now economic system of Japan has been changing, and we are losing a lot of social capitals. And now that is why in Japan, people started to be interested in social capitals. And it is also said that Japanese society has a mystery, because our government is our ruling party, Liberal Democratic Party of Japan, is has been very stable for more than half of a century, and in spite of its small government size. And researchers said that we may construct a hypothesis that the Japanese social capital has been complementing the Japanese small and tough government. That is why our society is kind of stable, and we maintain such one big stable ruling party for a very long time, in spite of our political system is democratic. And it is also said that our society has a kind of resilience in the face of natural disasters. And after very huge disasters, we are very fast to recover our previous system. And in that social capital is supposed to be working. Then my aim of my presentation is to compare the nature of local community or just community and social capital in Russia and Japan. And in Japan, decentralization of the government has been one of the critical policy issues for many years. And the social capital has been considered as an important catalyst for cooperation between the local administration and NGOs and NPOs, which help regional development and efficient public policy. And contrary, in Russia, highly centralized system in terms of politics, administration, and public finance has been constructed under the Putin regime. And people seem to be accepting it. Previous studies said that there is a kind of social contract between state and civil society in Russia, and people and the government are exchanging and people are accepting this current system. So I will show you some of the results of our survey and compare Japanese and Russian social capitals in some points. First, we would like to look at the relationship with family and relatives in Japan and Russia. This figure in the left shows how many family members or relatives we usually contact in a day, in person or by phone, letters, or through the internet. And here you can see that many very large number of Japanese answered 0 or 1 or 2 persons. So we have we don't have such close communication with people, with family members who don't live with us. And the graph in the right shows a frequency of communication. And here also that it is shown that Russians have much more frequent communication with family members daily. So we can say that relationship with family and relatives are very strong in Russia comparing with Japan. And the next slide shows a relationship with neighbors. And here again, Japanese have a very scarce relationship with neighbors. And almost 3 from 4 people have no contact with neighbors usually, or just with a few people, just greeting with a few people. And Russians have more communication. And the right table shows that how many neighbors do we have whom we can ask for help or advice. And here again, that it is surprising that about 65% of Japanese answered none. So relationship with neighbors are scarce in our country, and Russia in this sense seems more usual, ordinary. And this slide also shows the relationship neighbors. And left table shows if neighbors care about each other or not. And in Japan, very few answered that they strongly agree to that. So people are rather indifferent about neighboring people, and Russians care more about neighbors. And if we were in trouble, it seems that more Russians would help neighbors than Japanese. So in this sense, our network in neighborhood became kind of poor. But in terms of friends, I couldn't see so big difference between Russia and Japan. So today I omit the result about relationship with friends. And this table shows when we, to whom do we turn for help when we face the various kind of problems. And from these figures, we can say that the Japanese tend to rely on family members who are living together when they face various problems. And for Russians, family members are also important, but other relatives are also important as family members. And in Russia, I think the answer is more diverse than in Japan. So it is, we can say that in Japan, many people have only family members who are living together with them, to whom they can rely on when facing various kind of social problems. And these figures shows who can help you to success in the society in Japan and Russia. And please look at the figure in the light. And Japanese tend to choose both at work as a person who can help you to success in the society. It was most largest answer in Japan. And on the other hand, in Russia, answer others was the largest. And here, others means mostly family members such as parents or children. So many Russian chosen family members such as parents and the children as a person who can help them to success. Here again, relationship with family and relatives are very important in Russia. And in Japan, human relationship in the workplace plays an important role. And next slide shows membership in various kind of organization. And here you can see the difference between Russia and Japan. And the Japanese people like being involved in various kind of circles, local community organization, in school and university, alumni associations, and various kind of hobby circles. And among these circles, local community organization is the most widespread one in Japan. And such kind of local community organization exists everywhere in Japan, and still now it plays a role as a Japanese social capital. And on the other hand, Russians rarely participate in kind of circles, as you can see. So in Japan, membership in any kind of circles is important. And this slide shows reaction of people towards this government policy under the COVID-19 pandemic, and how and the evaluation of people about the efficiency of these policies. And in Russia, in the face of pandemic, support by family or relatives and friends worked are appreciated as effective. So personal network could mitigate the damage brought by the social pandemic. But in Japan, contrary, such networks with family and friends did not work, and public supports from the local or national government were more effective. And this slide shows a generalized trust. And here you can see that in Russia, majority of people answered that you should be rather cautious or very cautious about people in general. So from this figure, we can say that Russian society is low trust society comparing with Japanese. And the next slide shows particularized trust toward family and relatives and close friends. And such kind of trust is very strong in Russia. However, generalized trust is low. And we can see the contrast between Russia and Japan. In Japan, generalized trust is a bit higher than in Russia, but particularized trust is a bit weaker than in Russia. And the next slide shows institutional trust. And here we can see that majority of Russian trust president, while they don't trust local officials. And in Japan, contrarily, people are more critical toward the politicians at center, like prime minister, and more generous about local government officials. This video shows orientation towards equality and orientation to be useful to the society, but maybe I skip this slide and move to some summary and discussion. Professor Mizobata gave us several questions, and I think maybe I cannot answer. I'm not answering to all of the questions, but I try to answer some of the questions shared by us in advance. As for if there are any signs of integration or disintegration in social capital in the face of social turbulence, Russia, we can say that Russia showed a very strong particularized trust to family relatives, and such kind of bonding social capital within family and close friends worked efficiently in the face of social turbulence pandemic, I think. And in Japan, generalized trust is higher than in Russia. However, person-to-person network among family and community members is becoming very scarce, unfortunately. And the pandemic has brought the deterioration of social network, as we couldn't see each other for a year or 2 years, and in that period, we think our social capital has deteriorated. And as for the question, what is a key difference of social capitals of Japanese and Russian people. I think Japanese people prefer to be a member of various circles, especially local community-based associations play a role. And such kind of membership in any circles, including membership in the workplace, is important in Japan. And such kind of membership give you a network to be connected to the society, and it is important for better life in Japan. In Russia, people have more active interpersonal communication, I think, daily. However, intermediary organizations, including various kinds of circles and local organizations, seem to be weaker. And in terms of institutional trust, Russians has extremely strong trust in the president, while they don't trust local officials. And Japanese are opposite, have opposite tendency, and we are more critical about prime minister or politicians at the central level, and less critical about the local government officials. And that's why we see possibility for cooperation between local government and local social capital. And this is the last slide of my presentation. Connection between the capitalist model and the peculiarity of social capital. This is my tentative summary. Russia is characterized as an authoritarian state, and its economic model is described as state capitalism. And the connection between capitalist model and the social capital could be explained by that in low trust societies like in Russia, mutual trust are lacking, but it may be enforced by the states, a strong hand of the state, Robert Putnam said. And strong trust in the president, together with distrust in local government and lack of intermediary organization, I think form the current centralized system in Russia. And in Japan, it is difficult to say what kind of capitalism we have objectively, because I'm not a specialist of Japanese economy, but we can say that Japanese system is a corporate capitalism, and in our society, generalized trust is comparatively high, but the central authority is not trusted. And company, local government, and local community organization play certain role in creating social capital. So, but I am worrying about that social tie among relatives and neighbors and close people are becoming poor, and now it is said that Japanese retired men are most loneliest people in the world, and so I'm worrying about this tendency of social capital becoming thinner than it used to be. Okay, I'm sorry that I took too much time, but that is all for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So sorry, time is so restricted. So next quickly is Vasiliy, can you make? Okay.
Hello, everyone. Let me just share the screen. Okay, it's now available. Do you see my slides? I hope you see it. Is it okay now?
Okay, 10 minutes.
No more, because I have no more than 15 slides, as you see. Well, as Professor Mizobata already introduced our data, so we just to repeat it again, right? So we in March 2022, we organized mirror surveys, both in Japan and in Russia. And in Russia, we used the CATSI-certified RD sample method that allowed us to represent the whole Russian society, and the whole sample was 1,700 individuals aged 18 and above. So, and the very purpose of this session is to present this joint study, and I think that this study is unique, and I do not know, from my expertise, I don't know other studies and comparison using the survey methods during the last 3 years conducted in Russia and other developed countries. So these data are unique, and so we're here to present the main results. As my colleagues already mentioned, there are number of similarities and differences between Russia and Japan. And the most problem, I would say, for Russia is the very low level of interpersonal trust. So my presentation is just to focus on this particular problem: why Russians expose so little interpersonal trust towards strangers, and whether these effects, whether this phenomenon is the effect of the external shock that happened, in Russia in 2022. I call it external shock because Russians, they were not prepared for what happened, in February and March 2022. So for most of the population, it was just like external shock. And whether this phenomenon is the result of this external shock, or it's just the stable phenomenon that's happening in our country for the long period of time. Speaking about Russia, so my colleagues already highlighted the main issues of the Russian social capital. For example, the bonding type of social capital of Russia is a specific type, but at the same time, we have wider social connections, wider networks, but at the same time, we have so-called closed type. So we have bonding type and closed types of social capital. We have very strong relationships within the family members, friends, and extremely low level of trust to strangers. Well, and little interpersonal trust became a dominant social norm in Russia. And this is sort of a problem, because it is something that makes the social capital in our country conservative. So it's just the conservates, it conserves the bonding type of social capital, the closed type of social capital. So it's just the fuel for the closed type of social capital in our country. We know that before the COVID era and before the conflicts of Russia and Ukraine, we also were characterized by very low level of interpersonal trust. Here you see the data from World Value Survey, and you see that in 2018, 2017, we were characterized by the very low level of interpersonal trust, but at the same time, Japan also was characterized by very low level of interpersonal trust, even lower than in Russia. But at the same time, if you see at the very right column, you see that in Russia, we have the highest, almost the highest number of people who do not trust at all to strangers. And in Japan, we see the relatively lower number of people who trust to people who they see the first time. So it is maybe from the first slide, it seems that we have similar data, but the data is not similar. We can say that Japan is the society of the low trust, and the Russia is the society of distrust at the interpersonal level. Why is it so? So that is the main research question, which justifies econometric analysis of the determinants that are standing behind the little interpersonal trust to the strategies in Russia. So what shapes the interpersonal trust? So who are those, rare people who trust to interpersonal trust, and what are the main drivers that really boost the interpersonal trust in Russia? We know that, so the very point is that the interpersonal trust has a very complex structure. It's not just the issue of, it might be not just the issue of social demographics, it might be the issue of social attitudes, of life satisfaction, of optimism, or other dimensions of trust, for example, or even the socio-economic factors, like the income groups and occupations, as was shown by hierarchy. And at the same time, we also should admit that social capital, especially the cognitive aspects of social capital, like trust, are the results of psychological patterns that are behind the people's behavior. And these also should be taken into account. I already presented data, so I can skip this. So this is so what you see here is just the main distribution at the question of interpersonal trust to strangers that's extracted from the survey. And you see the very, very low numbers, even lower, that we observed from the world value survey. But as you mentioned, as you notice here, world value survey and our survey use different Likert scales. So world value survey use the 4-point scale, and we use the 5-point scale. If we rescale this, we still see the slightly lower level of trust towards strangers as compared to what we observe from the world value survey, but data are more or less the same. Okay. Okay, what are the determinants? We start modeling from the assets, right? From the objective information. So we build the model with social demographics and economics. And what we see that objective reasons like assets or social, like objective social demographic characteristics, they are not important at all. Especially income strata are not important at all. So the differences that Hayashi mentioned, they are not significant when we take them jointly with other social demographic characteristics. Actually, it is contributing to what Hirakim told us about the indifference of the income group for the Russian society when we speak about the determinants of social capital, especially of the cognitive aspects of social capital. See, the income groups are not important. Occupations are also not important. And education of people also not important, and residency not important, and age group maybe also maybe only the younger people from 18 to 24, they are less likely to trust strangers than, you know, elderly people, but other categories not important. And the most important characteristics are males, so gender is very important. And diving into literature shed some light on why gender may be important because of some psychological reasons, because males are more open to the society, you know, they're more active in the society, they're more expected to be like those who, you know, who bring the food, you know, to the family, and they want to be, and so they need to build up their connections in the society, so, you know, to make ties and connections, to make some money and so on and so forth. And this characteristics is robust in different cultures. So this is like, so it's psychological reason. Females are more they are more like they are more caution about you know, speak to other people, you know, trust to strangers, especially under the uncertain environment. So all things being equal, males are more likely to trust to people whom they see the first time because of psychological reasons. And other important thing here is that we ask people, can you rely on help of others if you need something from other people? And those who can rely on help of others, they are more likely to expose the interpersonal trust towards strangers. So it means that if we intensify the interfamily transfers at some point, right, or transfers at the horizontal level between NGOs, for example, and families, we increase, therefore, the level of, we can increase the level of interpersonal trust. So if people feel that they are not lonely, that they can be, you know, they can obtain this help or receive this help from others, doesn't matter whether they're relatives or NGOs, they're more likely to expose interpersonal trust. So then we add to the model some subjective characteristics like happiness and satisfaction, and we see that our gender effect and these effects of the help of others, these effects are robust. They didn't change so much, but the subjective characteristics are not important. So it doesn't matter whether people are happy, whether they're satisfied or not satisfied, you know, it doesn't matter whether they, so from the point of their trust towards strangers. Well, it is very important when we speak about the governmental policy towards the widening of social connections, so social capital in countries like Russia, for example, or in Japan, maybe. Because you know that there is a trend of speaking about the subjective measures, and subjective measures are very important now, the happiness, the satisfaction. But when we speak about the cognitive aspects of social capital, they are not important at all. So the most important thing is just you know, the feeling of the shoulder of a, you know, generalized other. Okay. We add some other characteristics there at the bottom of our panel, and you see that we add political interest, volunteer activity, and participation in political events. So grassroots political activity, we can say. And these are, you know, they're very they're important, but they're, you know, the significance is not that high, but political interest is very important. So when people, you know, the grassroots activity is very important. When people are active, they are more likely to trust to other people whom they see the first time. So if we, it means that if we, you know, if we block the political activity, if we block the grassroots activity of people, so we then block the trust towards strangers. So when we block the these kind of activity, grassroots activities, we then build up the very vertical and centralized relationships between ordinary people and the governments, and governments became more, responsible than, by default, by the, by the relationship. So no need to trust to others, to those whom you see the first time, if, government takes this responsibility. And the last variable that we add is just in general, we can trust other people. So generalized trust, and we see that generalized trust is the main actually determinant of the personal trust. So generalized trust is the main determinant of the personal trust, and it may be the intertwist. Okay, so if we build up the model otherwise versa, we can see the relationship. So here we speak about the relationship. So the generalized trust is highly correlated with the interpersonal trust. So if you want to boost the interpersonal trust, we want first to boost the trust of trust to other people whom people see the first time. So roughly speaking, we have the four main determinants. Male, which stands for the psychological effect, the feeling of help of others. I suppose that here might be the very active role of business and NGOs of helping other people, so to boost the interpersonal trust, and grassroots activity. Okay, so in conclusion, it seems like the external crisis doesn't seem to reshape the bonding type of social capital in Russia. It even strengthened the distrust in our country, and this phenomenon seems to be very stable and producing, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately, this or not, we don't know for sure, right? So because we didn't estimate the effect of low interpersonal trust to economic activity and so on and so forth, because there are literature saying that bonding type of social capital can also be very effective in building up the capital, building up the economic assets. For example, ethnic minorities, very like Armenian people or Jewish in the US, for example, they are very good examples of bonding type of social capital. And we also admit that the cognitive aspects of social capital in Russia have a very complex structure, especially these psychological effects of male gender. But at the same time, we accept that broad and closed type of social capital Russia to be a result of two centralized relationships between people and the government. And these kind of relationships, they do not promote grassroots connectivity and activity. So that's the main puzzle of the so-called authoritarian welfare capitalist models. When the governments, by default, by their own actions, accept more and more responsibility, not wishing to accept this kind of responsibility. And what we can say that I also accept and support the idea that government should play more important role in promoting the interpersonal trust by means of decentralization, I suppose, decentralization of the social activity. So that's the main conclusion of my presentation. Thank you very much.